Listen to me. There are things in your life that God has set apart, things that are too sacred to be shared with just anybody. Some of you keep wondering why your breakthroughs are delayed, why your spirit feels heavy, why certain people keep betraying you. Could it be that you're revealing things that should remain between you and God? See, when God chooses you, He sets you apart. He gives you divine assignments, dreams, and revelations that are not meant for casual conversations. Because not everyone will understand, not everyone will celebrate, and not everyone will handle it with care. Some people will try to talk you out of what God is leading you into. When God gives you a vision, it's not meant for everyone to understand. He places something deep within your spirit, something that aligns with your purpose, something that He intends to bring to life in His perfect timing. But one of the biggest mistakes people make is sharing that vision too soon with the wrong people. The moment you start talking about what God has placed in your heart, you expose it to opinions, doubts, and resistance from those who were never meant to see it in the first place. Some people will dismiss it, not because it lacks power, but because they lack the spiritual capacity to comprehend it. They'll project their own fears, insecurities, and limitations onto your calling, making you question whether you heard God correctly. Look at Joseph in the Bible. God gave him a dream, a vision of what was to come, a glimpse of the destiny that was waiting for him. But when he shared it with his brothers, instead of celebrating him, they despised him. Instead of supporting him, they plotted against him. What should have been a moment of joy turned into a moment of betrayal, because not everyone is meant to know what God is doing in your life. Reject your vision because it doesn't fit into their perspective of who you are. Others will try to shut it down because they fear what it means for them. The enemy knows that if he can plant seeds of doubt in your mind early, he can stop you before you even begin. When you share your vision prematurely, you open the door to discouragement. You might start strong, filled with faith, ready to walk in obedience, but the moment someone questions your ability, you start second-guessing yourself. The moment someone tells you it's impossible, you hesitate. The moment someone reminds you of your past, you wonder if God really meant what He said. It is not meant for validation from people who don't carry your anointing. Think about how many visions have been abandoned because they were shared with the wrong crowd. How many dreams never made it past the first stage because someone said it wouldn't work? Yeah. The enemy doesn't need to attack your vision directly if he can get you to speak it in the wrong environment. He knows that the wrong words from the wrong people at the wrong time can be enough to make you walk away from what God has called you to do. The enemy works through discouragement, through doubt, through the voices of those who don't see what God sees in you. There's a reason Jesus didn't perform miracles in every place. There's a reason He told certain people, don't tell anyone what I just did for you. It wasn't because He was hiding His power. It was because He knew that not everyone was ready to receive what had taken place. He understood that unbelief can be contagious, that doubt can spread, and that sometimes silence is the best protection for what God is doing. When you receive a vision from God, you don't need everyone's approval. You don't need a round of applause. You don't need confirmation from people who don't walk in the Spirit. The vision God gives you is personal. It's between you and Him. It's not up for debate. It's not meant to be explained to those who have no spiritual insight. Some of the greatest moves of God begin in secret. They begin in quiet places, in moments of prayer, in times of seeking His face. And when the time is right, He will bring the vision to pass in a way that no one can deny. But until then, you have to learn the discipline of keeping it hidden, not in fear, not in insecurity, but in wisdom. Wisdom to know that what God has placed in you is valuable. Wisdom to understand that some things need to grow in private before they can be revealed in public. Wisdom to recognize that not everyone has the faith to walk with you where God is leading you. Your weaknesses and struggles are not meant to be shared with just anyone. In a world where people are quick to judge and even quicker to use your vulnerabilities against you, wisdom is required in choosing who you confide in. Some people will listen, not to help, but to gather information. They will pretend to care, but deep down, they are taking mental notes, waiting for the right moment to use what you shared as a weapon against you. The enemy operates through people, through conversations, through the wrong associations. He knows that if he can get you to expose your weaknesses to the wrong person, he can use them to hinder your progress. Many people have been betrayed, not because they were weak, but because they trusted the wrong person with their struggles. They opened up thinking they were speaking to a friend, but in reality, they were giving ammunition to someone who didn't have their best interests at heart. There are people who smile in your face but secretly rejoice when you stumble. They will act like they support you, but behind closed doors they gossip about your failures. They spread what you told them in confidence, twisting it, exaggerating it, and using it to shape a narrative that benefits them. This is why discernment is crucial. You cannot share your battles with everyone. Some people will pretend to be a safe space, but they are nothing more than informants for the enemy. When you expose your weaknesses to the wrong people, you make yourself an easy target. Not everyone is spiritually mature enough to handle what you are going through. Some will see your struggle as a reason to doubt your calling. Others will take your pain as an opportunity to elevate themselves by making you look small. There are those who will pretend to give advice, but their words will only deepen your wounds. The wrong people will magnify your failures, remind you of your past, and make you feel like you are beyond redemption. They will make your struggle seem like a permanent condition rather than a temporary season. Even in the Bible, we see how dangerous it is to expose your weaknesses to the wrong people. Samson, a man anointed by God, was destroyed not by his enemies on the battlefield, but by his trust in the wrong woman. Delilah didn't defeat him with a sword. She defeated him by gaining access to his vulnerability. She kept pressing, kept asking, kept pretending to care until he finally revealed the secret to his strength. The moment he spoke, his downfall was set in motion. His enemies didn't have to guess his weakness. He handed it to them. The enemy works the same way today. He will send people into your life who seem like they care, who appear to have good intentions, but their real assignment is to find out where you are weak. The wrong relationships, the wrong friendships, and the wrong conversations can lead to unnecessary battles. Some struggles are meant to be taken to God in prayer, not shared with people who can't handle them. There is power in keeping certain things between you and God. When you expose your weaknesses to Him, He strengthens you. When you take your struggles to Him, He gives you wisdom. He surrounds you with the right people, people who will pray for you, not prey on you. Not everyone will understand your struggles. Some will judge you without knowing the full story. Others will compare your battles to their own and make you feel like you are overreacting. And then there are those who will pretend to relate, only to gather more information. This is why it's important to test the spirit behind the people you confide in. Are they truly for you? Do they encourage you, or do they secretly enjoy seeing you broken? Do they uplift you in private, or do they only celebrate you when you are doing well? The wrong person will use your struggle as a reason to look down on you, while the right person will remind you of who you are in Christ. Many people have delayed their healing because they trusted the wrong person with their wounds. Instead of finding comfort, they found criticism. Instead of support, they received judgment. Instead of encouragement, they were met with gossip. The wrong words from the wrong person can make a difficult season even harder. This is why some things should be kept between you and God, not in shame, but in wisdom. Some battles are meant to be fought in silence, because the more you speak, the more room you give the enemy to work. Silence and struggle does not mean you are alone. It means you are giving God space to work without interference. Your next move is not something that should be shared with everyone. There is a spiritual principle in moving in silence, because the enemy cannot attack what he does not see coming. The moment you start telling people your plans, you invite opinions, doubts, and opposition that were never meant to be part of your journey. Some people are not rooting for you to succeed. They are waiting to see you fail. The more they know, the more they can interfere. Some will pretend to support you, but secretly work against you. Others will smile in your face while speaking against you behind closed doors. The enemy studies patterns, habits, and movements. If he knows what you are about to do, he can place obstacles in your way before you even take the first step. There are spiritual battles that happen in the unseen, and sometimes the best strategy is to move quietly until what God has placed in your heart is fully established. Many people have aborted their destiny because they spoke too soon. They announced their plans to the wrong people, and before they could even begin, the resistance was already set in motion. Some opportunities have been blocked, not because God didn't want them to happen, but because they were exposed too early. In the Bible, Nehemiah had a vision to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, but he didn't go around telling everyone his plan. He moved with wisdom, inspecting the city at night, keeping his intentions hidden until the right time. He knew that if he revealed his strategy too soon, the enemy would rise up against him before he could even lay the foundation. And when the opposition did come, it was from those who didn't want to see the walls rebuilt. There will always be people who benefit from you staying in the same place, from you remaining stuck, from you never stepping into what God has called you to do. The moment they see you moving forward, they will try to stop you. Sharing your next move can invite unnecessary distractions. When people know what you are working on, they begin to place expectations on you. They ask questions, they give unsolicited advice, and they introduce their own fears into your situation. Some will tell you it's impossible. Others will remind you of your past failures. Some will try to compete with you, turning what should be a personal journey into a race. Instead of focusing on what God has spoken, you end up worrying about what people think. Instead of moving forward in faith, you start second-guessing yourself. Some people will act like they are happy for you, but deep down, they feel threatened by your progress. They see your growth as a reflection of their own stagnation. They may not say it directly, but their actions will reveal it. They will subtly discourage you, make you feel like you're not ready, or find ways to slow you down. Jealousy is real, and it often comes from the people you least expect. The ones who have been in your life the longest, the ones who have seen you struggle, are sometimes the ones who can't handle seeing you rise. Even Jesus understood the importance of strategic silence. He performed miracles and then told people not to speak of it. He withdrew to quiet places before major moments in his ministry. He understood that timing is everything, that some things must unfold before they are announced. There is wisdom in moving in alignment with God's timing rather than seeking validation from people. The wrong person knowing your next move can delay what God is trying to do in your life. Some battles are avoided simply by keeping quiet and letting your results speak for themselves. There are people assigned to distract you, to plant doubt in your mind, to make you feel like your vision is too big. They may not even realize they are being used by the enemy, but their words and actions can weaken your faith if you are not careful. Protecting your next move is not about being secretive out of fear, but about moving with divine wisdom. What God has placed inside of you is too valuable to be discussed with just anyone. When you move in silence, you allow God to prepare the way without interference. Some doors are meant to open without announcement, and when they do, the results will speak for themselves. Your deepest desires are sacred, and not everyone should have access to them. The things you long for, the prayers you've whispered to God, the dreams you carry in your heart, these are not meant for public display. When you reveal your desires too soon, you open the door to unnecessary opinions, judgment, and interference from people who may not have your best interests at heart. Some people will discourage you not because your desires are impossible, but because they cannot see what God has placed inside of you. They will tell you to lower your expectations, to settle for less, to be realistic. Not because they care, but because they have already given up on their own dreams. The enemy loves to attack desire. He knows that if he can get you to doubt what you want, he can weaken your faith. If he can make you feel like your desires are too big, too unrealistic, too far out of reach, then he can stop you before you even begin. He will send people to speak against what you want, to make you feel foolish for believing, to convince you that God will not come for you, not come through for you. And sometimes these voices come from those closest to you, family, friends, even people you look up to. They may mean well, but if their words do not align with what God has placed in your spirit, they can become a hindrance to your faith. Joseph had a dream, a desire placed in his heart by God. But when he shared it with his brothers, instead of encouragement, he received hatred. Instead of support, he was met with jealousy. His own family couldn't handle the vision God had given him. They saw his desire as a threat rather than a promise. And because of that, they tried to destroy him before he could step into his destiny. Not everyone is equipped to handle what you desire. Some people will pretend to support you, but deep down, they are hoping you fail. Others will try to plant doubt in your mind so that you never even attempt to pursue what's in your heart. Desire is powerful. What you focus on, what you pray for, what you truly long for, these things shape your life. But when you expose them to the wrong people, they can become tainted. You might start questioning if you're asking for too much. You might start comparing your desires to what others think is realistic. You might begin to feel guilty for wanting more, for believing that God has something greater for you. And the moment you start shrinking your desires to fit other people's expectations, you step out of alignment with what God has for you. Some people will try to convince you that your desires are selfish. They will make you feel like you shouldn't want more, like you should be content with what you have, like dreaming bigger is a sign of greed or arrogance. But the desires God places in your heart are there for a reason. He doesn't give you vision without provision. He doesn't place something in your spirit without the intention to fulfill it. But the enemy will use people to make you doubt, to make you feel unworthy, to make you question if you even deserve what you desire. There are people who secretly envy what you want. They may act supportive on the surface, but deep down, they feel threatened by your faith, by your ambition, by your belief that God can do something greater in your life. They may not say it outright, but their energy shifts when you talk about your dreams. They stop clapping when you make progress. They downplay your excitement. And if you're not careful, their lack of faith can start rubbing off on you. You might begin to think smaller, to play it safe, to lower your expectations just to fit in. Protecting your desires is not about secrecy for the sake of hiding. It is about wisdom. There are things God places in your heart that need time to grow before they are spoken aloud. Some dreams require incubation. Some prayers are meant to be between you and God alone. The more you expose your desires to the wrong people, the more you give room for doubt to creep in. There is a reason Jesus often withdrew to pray alone. There is a reason he didn't reveal everything at once. Timing matters, and so does discernment. Your good deeds and acts of kindness are not meant to be broadcasted for the world to see. In a culture where people seek validation for everything they do, it is easy to fall into the trap of wanting recognition for doing good. But true kindness does not need an audience. When you give, when you help, when you serve, it should come from a place of love and obedience to God, not from a desire to be seen or praised by others. The moment you start announcing your good deeds, you shift the focus from God's glory to your own. The recognition of people is temporary, but the reward from God is eternal. Jesus himself warned against doing good deeds for the sake of public approval. He said that when you give, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. He taught that those who perform acts of kindness to be seen by others have already received their reward, the fleeting applause of men. But those who give in secret, those who serve without needing attention, those who do good simply because it is right, God sees them, and he will reward them in ways far greater than human recognition ever could. When you constantly talk about your good deeds, it can shift your intentions without you even realizing it. What started as a genuine act of kindness can become a performance. Instead of helping because it is right, you start helping because you want approval. Instead of giving because God has called you to be generous, you start giving because you want others to acknowledge you. And the moment you start doing things for validation, you lose sight of the true purpose behind your actions. There are people who do good only when others are watching. They want their generosity to be noticed, their sacrifices to be acknowledged, their service to be praised, but true kindness is tested in the moments when no one is looking. Will you still give when there is no one to applaud you? Will you still serve when there is no one to reward you? Will you still help when you know you will get nothing in return? That is the true test of character. The enemy loves to corrupt good intentions. He will tempt you to seek recognition for your good deeds, to boast about your generosity, to subtly make sure people know about the things you have done. He knows that the moment you start seeking validation from people, you stop seeking validation from God. And when your reward comes from people, it is temporary. But when your reward comes from God, it is eternal. Some people will start to take advantage of you the moment they realize how much you give. They will begin to expect your kindness, to manipulate your generosity, to see you as a source rather than a person. If you constantly make your good deeds known, there will be those who come around only to receive, not to genuinely connect with you. They will use your kindness for their benefit, draining you emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes even financially. This is why wisdom is necessary when it comes to giving and serving. Not everyone deserves access to your generosity. When you do good quietly, you remove the possibility of people attaching their own expectations to your kindness. You are not pressured to keep proving yourself. You are not constantly seeking validation. You are free to give, free to serve, free to help, without worrying about how it looks to others. And in that quiet obedience, God moves. He sees every act of kindness, every sacrifice, every time you chose to help when no one was watching. And in due time, He will reward you openly. Some of the greatest blessings come from the things you do in secret. The prayers you pray for others, the encouragement you give when no one else is around, the way you uplift someone without expecting anything in return. These are the things that God honors. And when God honors you, it is far greater than any applause the world could ever give. There is power in silent obedience and quiet acts of love and kindness that does not seek attention. That is where true blessings flow. Your personal struggles and weaknesses are not meant to be shared with just anyone. In a world that encourages oversharing, where people broadcast their hardships for sympathy, validation, or attention, there is wisdom in knowing that some battles must be fought in silence. Not everyone who listens to your struggles is there to help you. Some are simply gathering information. Others may seem supportive, but will use your vulnerabilities against you when the time comes. Wrong people knowing your weaknesses can give them power over you, and that is something you cannot afford. The enemy studies weaknesses. He does not attack your strengths. He goes after the areas where you struggle the most. And if the wrong person knows your struggles, they can become a tool for your downfall. Some people act like they care, but they are only listening, so they can have something to use against you later. They will pretend to support you while secretly rejoicing in your pain. They will nod in agreement while storing your words as ammunition for the future. The more they know about your struggles, the more they can manipulate and control you. Judas sat at the same table as Jesus. He heard His words, witnessed His miracles, and walked closely with Him. But in the end, he used what he knew to betray Him. Not everyone close to you has pure intentions. Some people are only around to gather information. They stay close enough to learn your habits, your fears, your weaknesses, so that when the opportunity presents itself, they can use it for their own benefit. The Bible says to guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Part of guarding your heart is guarding the things that hurt you, the things that make you vulnerable, the things you are still healing from. There are those who will pretend to be your confidants, people who act like they understand, like they are there to help. But the moment they become upset with you, they will expose everything you told them in confidence. What you thought was a safe space becomes a source of gossip. What you thought was a private struggle becomes public knowledge. And once your struggles are in the hands of the wrong people, you no longer have control over how they are used. Sharing your struggles too soon can also make your healing process harder. When you constantly talk about what you are going through, you allow others to insert their opinions, their judgments, their doubts into your journey. Some will tell you that you will never overcome it. Others will remind you of how many times you have failed before. Instead of encouraging your healing, they will keep you trapped in the pain. Some people are so comfortable in their own brokenness that they do not want to see you heal. They want company in their misery, so they will discourage you from rising above your struggles. The strongest people are not the ones who share everything. They are the ones who take their struggles to God first. Before they seek human validation, they seek divine wisdom. Before they confide in others, they sit in the presence of God and allow Him to be their source of strength. There is a reason Jesus often withdrew to be alone with God. There is a reason David poured out his struggles in the secret place before God rather than before men. When you share everything with people, you rely on human understanding. But when you take it to God, you receive divine strength. Even when you do share your struggles, you must be careful with whom you confide. Not everyone can handle your truth. Not everyone has the wisdom to guide you in the right direction. Some will speak out of their own brokenness. Others will project their own fears onto you. A person who has never overcome their struggles cannot show you the way out of yours. That is why discernment is necessary. Some people are meant to pray for you, while others are meant to stay out of your process. There is also a danger in defining yourself by your struggles. The more you talk about them, the more power you give them. The more you focus on them, the more they shape your identity. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are not your weaknesses. When you constantly speak about what you are going through, you reinforce the struggle rather than the victory. That is why it is important to speak life, to declare the promises of God over your situation rather than constantly replaying your pain.